You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Before we get further into what happened with him, what are some of the things that were happening in the industry at the time? What was going on behind the scenes that was fueling this agenda, maybe some of the even occult aspects?
Some of the bigger aspects that were happening at that time, like mentioned, they had conspired to make hip hop more gangster, and you can see that. MC Hammer was a dance rapper, and then he turned it to a gangster rapper, and you saw it almost overnight. Each rapper transitioning. You would see like Will Smith, like we're mentioning. Will Smith was like the most cartoony gummy rapper back then. But then you see him on Fresh Prince. He's got the dreadlocks and the prison shirt, and you see these steps being taken. There was a transition happening from a pure physical standpoint. They're saying that they wanted more people to be put into privatized prisons. And when I see something like that, when my wife sees something like that, that may be true, but the true is to put you into a type of spiritual bondage, which is in your mind. So what they're trying to do is when you're influenced by music, which music is very powerful, they basically get you to develop behavioral traits that will not allow for you to think freely. And so most of the time, especially if you give it to certain people, they're going to end up in prison. But in a lot of cases, the worst of it is they're going to end up in a mental prison where you cannot reach that individual. You can't reach those people. You can't reach a group of people because on the forefront of their mind is this music that was meant to bring your mind down. And when you're reading the Bible, there's a dichotomy. That means there's only two sides. So when you see things starting to mess with your mind, you have to think about things like, apologize for my daughter.
It's okay.
You have to think about the mark of the beast, which is something also that people are like, that's conspiracy. That's not. The Bible talks about it. It's in your forehead, which means it's trying to take your mind. So when they were making that shift, the drugs, the fornication, the violence, all these things bring people into a place where their minds are being stuck into a worship practice, because the Catholic Church, they're into drugs. They brew alcohol. They were with tobacco. They used slavery. They've used all these things. So you have to see all the way markers. And that hip hop is heavily Catholic, because now
they knew they couldn't get, because Black people are predominantly not Catholic.
Correct.
So they knew they couldn't get them through that.
Exactly.
So if they can get somebody like Tupac,
exactly,
then they can start getting those Catholic ideologies
exactly
into them for them to accept them.
Exactly.
And actually, it really worked.
And to this day, how can you get a whole people? I actually went to Catholic school when I was a child. I don't know why. Nobody's in my house is Catholic.
I did too, brother. But yeah.
Yeah, you did too?
I did, yeah.
Oh wow! How long? How long?
Oh man, for like almost 10 years, because I grew up Catholic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was in. I'm glad you got out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've seen everything, the Stations of the Cross and all these things, which somebody told me, those are spiritual exercises, and when you're doing those types of things, those things cause spirits. So the prayer Hail Mary. How do you get a whole group of people to enter into a dialogue with Mary? How do they get them to be Catholic without understanding that they're Catholic? You write a song, and Catholics are used to doing what's called, I think it's, I forgot the actual, the name of it, but it's like Muslim. They like to sing, pray. They sing in the doctrine. And so they already use that. Yeah, when they're singing in Latin.
Yes,
and all
okay,
that.
I know what you're talking about, and they sometimes break into tongues and stuff.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, dang, what are you talking about? But and we've sat through that, and you feel it. It's more feeling than it is fact, and that is the same thing with hip hop. And so they use people like Tupac to have you sing in Hail Mary, which if you look at the lyrics, it's him talking to Mary, and he's talking about things that will go back to the Inquisition, murder, drugs, all these types of things are brought back in that the Catholic Church is notorious for, their history is notorious for, but they bring it into a new package. Like my wife said, for brown, black, different, but you just don't know that you're doing it, but you're sitting along, not knowing I'm getting used and feeling good to having a conversation with a deceased person, which is impossible, you know?
Yeah.
Right. How involved do you think the actual artists are with some of the occult sides of this? At what level do you think they even find out, if they find out at all, what they're really involved with?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Not to, because I don't want to go off a tangent on like the moon landing and everything.
Yeah.
But one thing that somebody said that was that sticks out when you say that is it's called compartmentalization. You don't really tell the person what they're involved in. You just have them do their part, and then they take the pieces. And why I can see that that's going on with Tupac is that he didn't know everything. He may have started to get an inkling of what was happening, but he played his role, and maybe he was starting to get wise to the situation. Maybe he had to be killed for that, because they surely took his intellectual property. They took his likeness, and they're able to do what they want with it without him interjecting.
Even giving him a hologram?
Yeah, giving him a hologram. And I don't think he knew everything. I don't think he knew everything he was doing. I think he was told to play a role. He played that role. He was drugged up a lot of the times. You know, it's notorious of him being in jail, not knowing what he's talking about.
Honestly, that picture though of him the day that he was gonna die, with Suge Knight in the driving seat.
Yeah.
He looked like he looked like he knew he was gonna die.
Yeah. That picture is very telling, because the look in his face is that, you know, I've lived this life, and we've had stories because we have a larger presentation on hip hop, and we just had people tell us things, and we've heard stories of when you're in that world, it's highly supernatural. Gang life is supernatural. You know, gangs use rosaries, they do all sorts of things like that. They have some similar Catholic, they're called street disciples or Los Trinitarios, which is the Trinities. They have a lot of Catholic spiritual occultism on the street level, which he was involved in. And I think that was to amplify not only his fan base, but you know, they're putting him through these rituals, whether he knows it or not. You know what I mean?
Let's talk a little bit more about the symbolism within hip hop and even the entertainment industry as a whole. Some of the things you have listed is East-West rivalry, Madonna, the Vatican playlist, Mary and spiritualism. Let's get into some of these connections and this symbolism here.
Okay, so a big Catholic connection with him is that hip hop was built on what's called the 5 percenters. That was a gang type of mentality mixed with spirituality, and their symbol is the sun, moon, and stars. And so the sun, moon, and star is the Babylonian Trinity. That's where the Trinity comes from. That's its roots. And they took this symbol, and it came out, and it was conjured in the 60s, came out in the 80s. Tupac rode upon the music that was formed on these principles. So it was already founded on something that was highly spiritual. Hip hop is highly spiritual from its roots. Tupac's job was to take that and to transition that into a Catholic-based worship music, because he was cutting out
like medieval Catholic.
He was going back to the basics. He's like, we're not gonna hide behind 5 percenters. We're not going to hide behind the Illuminati. We're not going to hide anymore. This music is so powerful that we have people tapping their feet to listening to Hail Mary. So let's kick this thing up.